How to prepare for a job interview. I'm Chris, this is the Office Survival Guide, where I do videos not to help you survive the office week, but give you the skills you need to crush it. And over my time, I've conducted hundreds of interviews, and I can tell you there's a big difference between good interviews and bad interviews. And good interviews are generally ones where the interviewee has prepared. So if you're thinking, hey, I don't really need to prepare, or preparation's not important for a job interview, I'm telling you, you're wrong, and it is important to prepare. But actually, if you tuned on to this video about how to prepare for a job interview, well, chances are you're not that person I was just talking to. You know preparation's important, and so in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 11 steps to help you prepare for your next job interview to help you get that next job. Preparation step number 1, research the company and the job. Look, I know it might have been a while since you put your resume in on monster.com or you handed it to a recruiter someplace, and you might actually not remember what this position or company is. Well, take some time, spend some time on the website, understand the job, because what you don't want to do, you don't want to show up at the interview and seem like you have no idea what this company is or no idea what you're applying for. You don't want to seem desperate in the interview. You want to seem like this company and this job are your dream jobs. And so as you are researching the company and the position, take a look and try to pick out the things that you really like so that when you're in the interview, you can actually talk about those things that you like. And with that preparation, it'll make the interviewer think, wow, this person doesn't just want any job, but they really want to work at this company, and this position is perfect for them. Step number 2, this step and the next few steps are going to be preparing answers to common interview questions. There are typically a set of questions that are asked in most interviews. They might not be asked exactly how I mentioned them, and you might not get all 5 of these questions, but these are questions that appear regularly, and so you should be prepared to deliver an answer. And the first one of these questions is, tell me about yourself. When they say, hey, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Or we've taken a look at your resume. Can you tell us about your background? You don't want to seem like, I've never really thought about how to describe myself. This is one of the most important answers to prepare for, because this question is often asked right at the beginning of the interview, and it'll often start with the interviewer perhaps picking up your resume, saying something like, hey, I've already taken a look at your resume, but I'd appreciate if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself before we get going. And so since it's almost the first thing you're going to say, you don't want this to be something that you're going to stumble over. You want this to be an answer that you've practiced and prepared. And so things that you want to think about as you prepare this answer, you want to think about where you grew up, where you went to school, and then what the experience and accomplishments are in your background that make you a good fit for this job, and the answer you deliver should be somewhere between 2 to 5 minutes. And so you might say something like, I was born and raised in Southern California. I went to school on the East Coast at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I was really interested in robotics, and so I pursued my PhD in robotics, specializing in underwater basket weaving robots. After school, I worked at 3 companies perfecting my underwater basket weaving robot designs. And I'm really proud of the fact that we entered the robot at my last company into this basket weaving competition and actually took first place worldwide for basket weaving robots. Now I've shortened the answer to that question for this video, but you get the general idea of what should go into that answer. Step number 3, prepare an answer to why do you want this job. This should focus on the company and the position and what you really like about it and what you intend to gain about it, or what makes you really excited about this opportunity. This is separate and distinct from question number 4, step number 4, preparing an answer to the question of, why are you the best fit for this job? These are 2 different questions, and so you should think about your answers differently. The first one, you want the interviewer to get the perspective that this is your dream company, and you'll use the information that you collected in step number 1, researching the company and the position, about why you want this job. Now in step number 4, preparing an answer to the question, why are you the best fit for this position? This is where you take your experience, your skills, and your accomplishments, and then you package that together to say why you are the ideal candidate for this job. Now, when I mention prepare answers to these questions, I don't mean just think about them. When I say prepare answers, I mean first think about them, but then also actually write down the answers. Now, when I say write down the answers, I don't mean write it down word for word in the script, but write it down in bullet points so that as you're practicing later, your bullet points can help you remember and help you stick to a fairly well-delivered answer when you're actually delivering these answers in an interview. Step number 5, prepare an answer to the question, why are you leaving your current job? This is assuming you have a current job. If you're currently employed, interviewers often want to know, well, why are you leaving your previous position? By the way, as you prepare this answer about that, you should not spend your time slandering your previous company, talking about how your previous boss is awful. You should talk about growth. You should talk about things you want to learn. You should talk about life changes that make you want to move to a different region. Those are the kind of things you should talk about when you want to leave your current job. Step number 6, prepare an answer to the question, what accomplishments are you most proud of? Now, this should be an answer that's based on something the interviewer could find in your resume or take a note on your resume. So take a look at your resume and see of the things you've written in there, what are you most proud of, and prepare about 2 to 3 answers to this question because you might get it asked in different ways. You might get it asked, what is the accomplishment you're most proud of? But you might also get asked, what was the most significant challenge in your career you had to overcome? Tell me about a time when you did X, Y, Z. These are all versions of the what's your most significant accomplishment question. Step number 7, prepare an answer to the question, what's your biggest strength and what's your biggest weakness? People often think about what's their biggest strength, but they often don't think about what's their biggest weakness. And when the interviewer asks you the question, what's your biggest weakness? You don't want to say, I don't have any, or I've never really thought about it. Again, those are signs of a bad interview. You want to think about those things so that when the interviewer asks, you have an answer to them. By the way, your biggest strength should be something that is a strength that you think is important for this job. Your biggest weakness should be something that isn't going to completely disqualify you from the position, but the weakness should be something that you've recognized and that you're working on to help develop. So when you give the answer about your biggest weakness, for example, you might say something like, one of my biggest weaknesses is the ability to multitask. I really have a hard time doing multiple things at the same time. I'm really good when I can just focus on one thing, but I've realized this is a problem, and so something I'm doing to improve upon it, I'm creating to-do lists and prioritizing my work so that when I get a lot of tasks that come in, I make sure I write them down, and that way when I finish my current task, I know the next thing to go on to, and I don't let any balls drop. Once I've started doing this, I've found that I'm able to multitask quite a bit better. Step number 8, now that you've prepared all of these answers, it's time for you to practice these answers. And when I say practice, I don't just mean practice them in your head, but I mean practice them out loud. You can start just by saying them out loud in a room by yourself. Then you can move on to practicing them in front of your video camera or in front of your phone. Record yourself, watch yourself. And by the way, if you think this is silly and you have a hard time reciting these answers to a camera, don't you think it's going to be much harder reciting them in person when it's way more stressful? Get out the stress and learn to deliver these answers so that then when you actually get to that interview, you've delivered them 5 to 10 times, either out loud by yourself or to a camera, so that now when you go deliver it to the interviewer, it's much better. Now the next step, step 9, something that'll really help you for that interview is if you can practice them with an actual person. Your brother, your sister, your spouse, your best friend, your mom, your dad, whomever. If this job is really important to you, I'm sure important people in your life will be happy to hang around for 30 minutes and just go through these 5 questions with you. And you should actually have them pretend to be the interviewer and ask you the question, and then you recite the answer. Get all of the nervousness out. If you do this, I guarantee it'll make your actual interview better. And by the way, if you don't have any friends that can help you, a great way of practicing interview answers is actually going to job interviews. So if you have a dream job, well, maybe go interview at like 5 other companies before you go to that dream job so you can have practiced your answers with those people that you really don't care about so much until you get to your dream interview. Step number 10, prepare some questions for them. Most interviews end with the interviewer asking you if you have any questions for them. And you should have a couple of questions, not 10 questions, not 20 questions. You should have somewhere in the range of 1 to 3 questions. Now, good questions are things like, perhaps you can tell me a little bit about what a day in the life of this job would look like. Or asking them the question, what is it that you like about working at this company? Bad questions are, hey, can you tell me how much this job pays? The interview is not a time to discuss the salary. You will find out the salary and have salary negotiations if they actually select you and you get a job offer. Another question you should definitely not ask is, hey, Did I get the job? That question is almost going to be the kiss of death and make sure that you didn't get the job. And step number 11 is to prepare a few extra copies of your resume and also prepare a change of clothes. So why is it important to bring your resume? Well, the interviewer might have looked at your resume a month ago when they decided to select you for this interview, and they might not remember everything. And when they came to the interview room or interview place, they might not actually have it handy on them. So make sure you print some copies of your resume, and when you actually get to that interview, you can say, hey, if you need it, I have a copy of my resume right here. Probably 8 out of 10 times you won't actually need that resume during the interview, but the 2 out of 10 times that you do, it'll be really good to have it, because if they ask you, do you have a copy of your resume? And you're like, nope. They'll be like, well, you're not really prepared for this interview. Now, the change of clothes, why is that important? Well, you definitely don't want to show up to the interview with some big coffee stain down your shirt or ketchup stain on your pants. You never know what can happen. And so if you're going someplace for the interview, in your car, in your backpack, make sure you have a change of clothes in case any of these spills happen. And speaking of resumes, if it's been a little while since you've dusted off your resume, well, it's probably time to update it. And I've got some tips for you right here on what to do to update your resume to help you get that job interview. So click right here to watch it. As usual, I won't say goodbye because I'm going to see you right here. Links are also in the description below.